It is 7:19 on November 28th, 2017, and we're going to call the school committee meeting to order. We are starting a little late because of some conflicts. Some of us getting stuck in traffic and some of us having some personal or health issues that kept them from being here. I don't know if we have any discussion that's going to require full committee participation, which may have to table unless Marie joins us a little later. Okay. So we're going to start with the approval of our November 6, 2017 minutes. Did everybody get a chance to?
We can't because
Dan wasn't there.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
Okay, so we'll table that. Do we have any other visitors who had comments? No. Moving on to our student representative report.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you again, Annabelle.
Yeah, you too. Long time no see.
I know, yeah.
So Hope is up and running again. It was a bit shaky on an advisor earlier in the year, so it hadn't officially started for the Halloween season. So they didn't help to run the trick-or-treating event, but it went well anyway. But currently Hope is doing a can drive for the winter holiday season, with plans to work with a foster child program to do Secret Santa again for this year. Music...
What is the can drive? Is it the food drive that you guys...
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh. It's not just can drives, but like... Yeah.
And
I just kind of classify it, but...
and items for the neighbors to help neighbors helping neighbors. There's a graphic for poetry, so we have both combined
Where do you guys collect?
in the classroom.
In the
Yeah,
classroom?
so each, like, depending on teachers, so we went around and asked what teachers would be willing to give bonus points or, like, homework passes, whatever, to students who donated an item. So whichever classrooms those teachers are in, like, you can just donate.
Can people from outside the community, could they contribute to it? Okay. And is there a deadline to this?
19th.
19th of November? No, of December. Okay. Thank you.
So Musings Literary and Art Magazine selected a variety of winners for a writing and art contest that they held this month. The winners get a pizza. Each month, new winners will be drawn. They're also working on collecting submissions and reviewing them for the end of the year magazine publication. And each grade right now is getting into the fundraiser season. The sophomore class held a chocolate bar fundraiser last month, and the freshman and senior classes are now also in the middle of fundraising. Cotillion is this Saturday, December 2nd, at the Knights of Columbus on Granby Road from 6 to 11 p.m. The theme is Winter Wonderland. This...
That's good.
Like, my head hurts really bad. I'm kind of monotone.
Okay.
We're excited. Don't worry. We're very excited, okay? It's going to be great.
Hold up an emoji.
The school's Student Advisory Council has been working this past month on identifying and finding ways to address topics within the school that the students feel could be improved on or done more efficiently. And I'll be bringing back more information on that as we move forward with that. And a student in art this year is working on a mural of Granby and all its major landmarks that will be up in the library once it's finished. There's also an art show that's going to showcase certain selected students' artwork, and will have its first showing this Thursday at HCC. I'm not sure what time that is. And this Friday is the next RSAC meeting, so Regional Student Advisory Council. SSEC delegates at the state level are bringing back information from the last SSEC meeting, which was November 16th, and presenting it to RSAC members. The Western Mass RSAC has chosen to work on the same topics that SSEC is working on, which is mental health and civics, so all the work is mostly a continuation of what's being done at the state level. It's going to carry down to the regional level. And at this month's SSEC meeting, we reviewed the most recent survey that was put on the MCAS and suggested revisions to get clearer results from each grade level. This surveys address the school's climate and culture, So making sure that students and teachers feel respected and safe, and that their voices are heard and they're encouraged to succeed academically. We continue to work with our work groups and follow the goals and timelines we had set at the previous meeting. And in the executive session, where the SSEC chair talks to a smaller group, it's one student from each council of each region, with visitor sort of things. Like, I was a visitor at that meeting. I wasn't specifically selected, but you can have visitors from the, like, council itself. So the SSEC chair talks to us about what's been discussed at the last board meeting. And we talked about MCAS 2.0 and how it's changed from the past MCAS test and what difficulties there have been with it, such as like technology issues because it's on the computer, so what's going on with that, and how it can be improved for future test sessions. Also, November 7th, several students and teachers attended a mindfulness seminar at the public library with Kate and Miss Roy, who are here. I'll let them like really speak to it, but I want to say that because I attended the session and so did some of my peers and a few teachers that I have. I learned multiple breathing and like moving techniques that help to ground you and regain focus when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed. In my English class specifically, my teachers attended the session. And so we use the like long, slow breath technique to bring the class back to focus, and I feel like it really helps the students to settle back into their classwork, which is really helpful. Yeah.
We should do it now.
I was just going to say, we should do that.
Can you wait about 4 minutes?
We will practice.
Relax, not asleep.
My question is, can you do it with a 7-year-old?
Yes, I have done it with a 7-year-old, absolutely.
Cool. Will you be able to bring some of your SSEC or RSEC, whichever one that
RSEC.
was, to one of our meetings to share your learnings? I think there was a conversation around that. Maybe
Right,
next year,
right.
not immediately. but next
Yeah.
year.
Do you have a specific date in mind? Because I
No, pick any school committee meeting, just
Okay.
so that we can make time for it.
Okay.
When you have enough to share.
Right, yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I don't know if we're really far along enough in we only had one RSEC meeting so far, so we're still kind of,
Cool.
like my work group, I'm in mental health, we're still kind of like gathering, so civics, but we're still gathering like our ideas and stuff for the projects and stuff that we want to work on within our group, so we don't have like a really solid base of like on what we're doing yet. So yeah, there's not much to bring, but
Sounds like
later
you
on,
picked two great topics.
yeah.
Yeah.
So later on in the year, I can let you guys know
Yeah.
what's
Please do
best.
that.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions, Annabelle? Okay. Thank you, Annabelle. So I know that you said you have a headache. If you don't mind, just if you can give us a couple more minutes. I know that you probably want to stay for this one. So we'll take a quick break from our agenda. This is the last night Tim is filming our school committee meeting. Those folks who are watching our committee meetings have the opportunity to switch channels whenever they want to. Tim can't do that. Tim sits there and he tries to find something to do or listens to us. And he's been doing this for how many years?
This is 6.
6 years.
Whoa.
Alright.
So that also shows a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and we appreciate that. But we truly appreciate you being here every meeting. This is a very important thing for us, for the community. Thank you for all the hours that you spent with us. But as a member of GCAM, our public access channel, I also want to thank you for everything that you've done for the station and for the town. So with that, just as as something to remember us by.
Let's get him on camera.
Get him on camera.
Keep the speech to 10 minutes.
So he's gonna wear this when he works at Channel 22. So we should be watching for that, right?
Yes.
That.
Thank you guys.
All car.
Oh, of course I have.
Yeah, of course. And this is for your car.
Oh,
Yes.
perfect.
Thank you very much. So with that, feel free to leave with that. We are moving on to new business, and the first item is e-learning. Did you?
So I
Want
would
to-
request, as riveting as our agenda might be, if we could take it out of order because we do have guests here with us.
Of course we
this
can. I just
evening.
didn't know which one. was yours,
So we're going to move to C. I would ask to move to C.
Okay, so Sally's mindfulness.
So Sally O'Shea came forward and had a conversation with me over the summer regarding the chance to bring mindfulness training to the district. And I thought, mindfulness training? Gee, I had mindfulness training a few years ago. And lo and behold, she brought forward Kate Forrest of SelfCare Moments. And Kate was actually the trainer that I was involved in when I was with the Ludlow Public Schools. And Sally came forward with a generous donation, which we approved in receipt of, in order to bring Kate to the district to provide self-care training for students and staff. And so over the summer, we worked with new principal, Mr. Sullivan, to bring this idea to life. And one of the things that Stephen has brought forward is the idea of really having student voice at the table. And that matches with my goal, certainly, of having us all understand that we learn together. And when we're learning together, it's so powerful. So when adults and students are learning together, they're taking risks together, they're being vulnerable, and working together. I think that that's a wonderful role model for true learning and lifelong experiences, which we hope for all of our students and ourselves as we grow every day. I did want to say, Sally couldn't be with us tonight. She wasn't feeling well, but I did want to read her email to us, which is simply, thank you for the opportunity to bring Kate Forrest and her mindfulness and self-care program to the Granby school system. I hope the faculty and staff and students will continue to share the skills learned throughout their classrooms. This donation is in honor of my children Maggie, class of 2011, and Connor, class of 2015, and the education they receive through the Granby Public Schools. So thank you very much, Sally, if you're watching.
Yeah, thanks, Sally.
And with that, I think there's no better people to talk about how the program evolved than the people who were part of it. And perhaps we can start with Jess.
I'll talk. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Roy. I'm a social worker at Granby Junior Senior High School. So, I embarked on welcoming Kate. I had worked with Kate previously as well in a previous district I worked in. So, what I was really excited about was combining students and staff together for this training. So, we actually had 7 students and 10 staff, I believe, for that training. And the students that we had were 9th through 12th graders, and we had staff from both the high school and the elementary level. We had support staff and teachers both. What I took from it was, for me personally and professionally, to see the students and staff together doing self-care and recognizing the commonalities between the adults and the students struggling with being able to reduce their anxiety and their stress. And it was really powerful for me to see them share and learn together, and exactly what Cheryl was talking about, how getting out of your comfort zone and being able to do that and be so vulnerable together was truly powerful. And for me, on a professional and personal level, was probably one of the most influential experiences I had as a social worker. So moving forward, I'm really excited to embark on the journey using these skills in my building with my students and with my staff. I will say, because it was a half-day professional development, there were some limitations in terms of getting more staff involved. So my hope moving forward is that I could have an opportunity to present this in the future, with having capabilities for more faculty to join without limitations of parent conferences. But it was a real great experience, and the feedback from the students was great, and I was really excited about it. And I thank Kate for coming.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that.
So welcome. It was really a lovely day and a beautiful experience for myself as well, having the staff and the students in the same program. I've been teaching these skills for 20 years, and in the last 10 years in the education field. So I've been in a lot of the local districts, and this was the first training I did combining the teachers, the staff, and the students together. And it was so magical in my own life. And the feedback from the kids was just really beautiful to hear how deeply they appreciated being in the same room with their teachers, with their administrators, and how they felt a connection that they hadn't felt before. So it helped to build relationships, and one of the things we also focused on was leadership skills. So I shared some mindfulness and self-care. So, and I'll share a brief breathing break with you all in a moment. So a little bit of breathing breaks, some movement breaks, and some other mindfulness activities is what we did that day. And then we broke the groups into groups of 4. And each group had a student. And we had the students and the teachers and the counselors and the faculty teaching each other these skills. So they had 15 minutes per group, and learning together, overcoming their edges of discomfort together. And it was just such a beautiful experience to watch them learn and grow together. And they all did it. And then after, we had a sharing session where they would talk about how it was for them. How, I think it was Jordan said she didn't realize, like, we're all the same. All of us were nervous. Like, I didn't think teachers got nervous. Well, of course we do. We're human beings, right? So it brought this level of connection and care and authentic relationship into the process of learning how to focus, learning how to release your anxiety, learning how to ease your physical tension, engaging in that practice of learning together. It was so beautiful to observe. And I'd love to share some of the written feedback with you, if I may. Would you?
Yes.
Okay. So this first one is from a male student. I learned to slow down, to breathe, and to clear my negative thoughts. And this will stay with me for my entire life, to guide me in my worst moments and my most stressful situations. Think about that. Young people having social, emotional learning skills to soothe their anger, to soothe their anxiety, to make more mindful choices, to give themselves that permission to pause and breathe and practice kindness to themselves and others. He learned skills that will stay with him for his entire life, and this was in a 2.5-hour workshop. And it was really 2 hours and 15 minutes by the time we got started, because educators are always late for my programs. That's just how it goes. And this is another student who drew little hearts and happy faces all over. I just think that's adorable. I really like the breathing in and out exercise because it helps with less stress and anxiety, and it helps me calm down and be more peaceful. Another young man. Student, I enjoyed the 2-minute breathing because it really made me forget about my other thoughts, and I really just focused on what I care about. I hope to share this with my family because they are always very stressed. So part of my work together is to encourage community building, relationship building. And this young person, and so many young people in my trainings, share with their families. Teachers go home and share with their families. When you ask, sir, can a 7-year-old be taught these? Absolutely. Absolutely. I see it all the time. It brings families together. Getting people to practice mindful living, to unplug from technology, to have authentic conversation and mindful listening with each other versus always on the cell phone or always texting. That's okay sometimes, but can you also integrate true authentic connection so that we build this practice of kindness? because my philosophy is that self-care is world care. And when we take just a few moments or a few seconds at a time to care kindly for ourselves, we have more patience, more compassion, more love, more kindness, more strength and energy to share with others. And this positive energy, it ripples out, it affects our entire community in peaceful and positive ways. And we so deeply need this right now. Couple more from teachers. Greatest takeaway, long, slow breaths to be peaceful and prepared for what's next. We can all use this more. Thank you! Exclamation point. Counselor, my greatest takeaway was the idea of using the movement breaks more often while doing the breaths. Also the idea of empowering others. I will use these skills at least once a day and also share with students. So already rippling into the community just from this one small workshop. And another teacher, don't let someone else's negativity or my anxiousness stop me from sharing this in my school community. Because when you bring this more deeply into your school community, you run into resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And you will. That's part of the process. Part of my teachings is don't let that stop you. Because this work is too important to be stopped by someone that is habitually and chronically negative and complaining. We need to stand up and speak up and say, this is what we want to bring to our community. This is what will help our children, our families, our teachers. This is what will help their MCAS scores. Truly. Mm-hmm. You know, when we teach our kids how to focus, their minds expand. They get more creative thinking-wise. There's just a plethora of benefits to this way of living. And mindfulness, it's simply a word. It's just when your body and mind are in the same place at the same time. It belongs to no one religion, no one sect, no one group. It's a way of living. If you want to know what mindfulness is, truly, watch a child. Watch an infant. That's what mindfulness is. So fully present with this life. So curious and engaged in the moment. Just being here, being present. Yeah. So, would you all be willing to try an experience with me?
Mark was hoping that would happen.
All right. So it can be super simple. And this is what I hope to do. I'd love for every teacher, at the beginning of every class, the students walk in, and the first thing they hear is, all right, everyone, let's all pause and share a few long, slow breaths together. And then the students just get quiet, the teacher gets quiet, and gives these young people 20, 30 seconds to just pause and breathe, and not always having so much thrown at them all the time. When we give little pockets of pause throughout the day, so much good will come from this. So let's pretend we just started this meeting, okay? And the first thing we would do, could you tell me how to pronounce your name, please?
Emre.
Emre. So if you came in and Emre was to say to you, all right, we're going to begin in just a moment, so would you all be willing to pause and share a long, slow breath with me? And some of you might go, oh, I don't think so. and Emre might be going, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm going to be doing this, but what the heck, let me try it.
If we put it on our agenda, we have to do it.
Right. All right, there. Do it and let me know how it goes. Okay. Or I'll just watch it at the next meeting. All right, so here we go. Let's all pause and share a long, slow breath together. Anyway, just breathe. Notice what this is like for you. And then one more long, easy breath together. And that's it. It's as simple as that 30, 40 seconds. And notice how you feel now compared to how you felt just a moment ago. So does anyone in any way feel any better, any more grounded, any more slow or better inside? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4,
Well, yes, I would.
5.
I just didn't.
And you're going to get that. And you may get that in the classroom too, because we all have different experiences. And this is what's great to know and to acknowledge. Like, this might be a little weird for you, and that's okay.
It was
But-
weird.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like,
so
I'm on camera breathing deeply. That's weird.
YouTube.
I was like, just focus, just breathe.
Just right. So like stepping through your edges of comfort, leading by example, which is one of the skills that I teach, and letting people know, like, it's okay to pause. It's okay to be quiet together. It's okay not to talk all the time. And just to help to release our stress and make better choices, this is one of the things that we can do. So was that was weird for you?
No, it wasn't weird actually. I've done it before. It's just that I need a lot more breath to really bring me out of my stress right now. So.
Yeah, I understand that. And the skills I teach are from 10 seconds to 10 minutes and longer, depending on, but what I teach in the school districts, 10-second to 10-minute, what I call self-care skills. If we can get our young people to care kindly for themselves, to learn how to take care of their needs, and the same for the educators, the administrators, it'll make a huge difference, really. So we're hoping to, I'm doing a training through the Lower Pioneer Valley Education Collaborative, and I are partnering. And I'm doing a 2-month training, and it's open to 35 educators. So it's January 29th and March 19th. And then there's 2 online components in between. So it's 2 full days and an online component in the middle, and then bringing that training into your communities. And we hope to get quite a few of the Granby community into that training. So there's still spaces open, and that's one thing. That's one way we can move forward to this work and kind of spread it more deeply into your community. And there's other options. I can come in and do more trainings, but we can talk about that later, and I can share more things with you later. I just wanted to kind of give you a little taste of what this work is and what it does.
Appreciate it.
And if you want to go to my website, there's more information on there. It's kateforrest.com. And KATEFOREST.com. And there'll be some free resources on there within the next 3 weeks. I'm upgrading the website, so check it out, Annabelle. And thanks for sharing what you shared about what these skills do for you and that your teacher's sharing them. That's great to know. Yeah, thank you all so
Well,
much.
no,
Does
thank you
anyone
very
have
much
any
for coming.
questions?
Oh, I have lots of questions. Well, this is my world. This is my practice. I'm a clinical social worker in private practice.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
yeah, this is definitely in my wheelhouse. I'm curious about teaching it at a district level, because I know in Springfield, for example, I think they have some schools where they start out every day with a mindfulness exercise over the loudspeaker.
Mhm.
And that's how students start the day. They do maybe a 3-minute mindfulness, it's sort of just the breathing. And I'm curious if that was brought to them through training such as yours. Is this, a program? What costs are associated with it? There must be different levels.
There's absolutely different levels. And the way I work, tell me your name again, please.
Deanne.
The way I work, Deanne, is I ask you what your budget is, and then I build a program for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we can definitely talk more about that. I have done training in the Springfield schools, so that may be where that has come from. Mr. Sullivan and Jess Roy and I were just talking last week. I came in, we were talking about bringing this into the morning announcements every day, and starting with Jess leading it. Jess and I are doing, she's in my mentoring program, so we're doing some training together, so she'll be doing more of this as she grows forward as well, too. And then inviting the students to start asking everyone to pause and breathe together. And really getting quiet for that 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever it is, but letting it happen organically. It can slowly seep in, and you see just from this 2-hour training how it's already starting to seep in, and it's already. So imagine what could happen if we trained more of your staff.
Yeah, and I'd like to, mindfulness is a practice, right? So if it's not consistently practiced on a daily, it's not something that can be done in a 2-hour training and then you forget about it until the next 2-hour training. So if we're serious about something like this, then, this is, you have to be all in other words. So, I would love to see it happen at both schools on a daily basis where it becomes part of the language. So
it certainly was something that Stephen and I discussed, because it was a gift, what was the best way to use that in terms of creating basically some seeds in the district. Because we recognized at this point we don't have a curriculum resource for this, but this was a way to start the conversation and get students and staff together. And I think the response has been so positive that our continued work will be, through the budget season and through the resource season, trying to figure out ways to resource this and, a plan towards exactly what you're talking about. What are the objectives and the goals?
And I also do have a curriculum package that goes along with my programs and online trainings as well. So it can be in-person personal development combined with the online component. It can be all one or all the other, but I think it's lovely to have the two together and to somehow invite the students in as student leaders. If we can get some student leader mentors in a mentoringship program with me, with their peers, and teaming the teachers and the students up in the classroom, like Annabelle was talking about with her teacher, Jen, encouraging each other, encouraging their peers, because the story that I got from Jess was the first time that Jen tried it in Annabelle's class, the students didn't really go for it, and it was very awkward for Jen. And I thought, oh, come on, Jen, keep it up, because we talked about this is going to happen. People are going to laugh at you, potentially. That's just how it flows with this work. And clearly it's been a month, give or take, and Jen's still doing it every day. And I'm so excited that she stepped through that. People are laughing at me, I'm going to stop it right now. Well, no, I'm not. This is too important, and that's a huge part of my training in the curriculum and in the words I use.
Cool.
So perhaps you and I should connect.
yeah.
All right, let's do that at some point. I'll reach out, I'll get the information from Cheryl.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you all
Okay,
so much.
thank you very much for coming.
No, you're so
Appreciate it.
welcome. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you all.
And as we wrap this up, again, thanks, Sally, for,
Yes.
for making this
Yeah.
possible.
Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned it in your intro, but Sally was a school committee member.
I did not
before.
mention.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
So her contributions to the district continue, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Sally, if you're watching this.
Thank you, Sally.
So we're gonna move on to. Are we going back to the top? Cheryl, did you want to go back to the top, or is there a specific
We
order?
have Mr. Sullivan here. I think if we could go to work-based learning,
We absolutely can.
that would be great.
This is the second read on that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we looked at it once before,
Yep.
and he rewrote it.
Would you like your microphone?
Hmm?
Would you like your microphone when you say
Tune it this way.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
So we
Hello.
had
Hi again.
we had discussed work-based learning, and you had some recommendations for updates to the forms and to the process. So Mr. Sullivan, Stephen, is here to talk about that and present the update.
So I think everyone should have a copy of the latest. So the feedback last time was that, and I think rightfully so, that the criteria was a little bit loose. And I will admit it's still flexible, but it's, I would say, tighter than it was. And what we did was Ms. Jordan and I tried to use some criteria that we have already in place, both for athletics and enrollment into dual enrollment programs, and combined some of the language in there because we felt like some of the language from athletics fit well with this, some of the language from dual enrollment fit well, and then other pieces of those two policies didn't fit as well for our vision around the work-based learning. So we did add just the criteria piece at the bottom of page 1.
What is this under?
PL contract.
Yeah,
It's way down the bottom of the folder.
No, I can't. I don't see it.
Are you in November 29th?
28th.
28th, sorry.
Yeah, I am in the 28th.
Can you get all the way to the bottom?
Yeah, it's not going any further. That's it.
Because you have a lot. Oh, it's moving.
Oh, there it is. It's at the top.
Do we have a number of students who are already interested in
go.
this?
I don't have the exact number, but we have students who have already expressed interest. Like we said last time, it is kind of developed through the community service learning program that's already been up and running. And as some students through community service have made connections with workplaces in both in and out of Granby, that's I think what generated the conversation originally last spring. That's my understanding. So we did, in terms of tightening it up, we wanted to make sure that
I'll look at it.
it was upperclassmen, so students who have, we know that we've had them, most of them at this point, for 4 years when they're in 11th grade, so we understand their work ethic, we have a little bit more of an understanding about their pathway, their trajectory, post-secondary. And we said good academic standing, which isn't, I think last time we talked about saying, like, what is the GPA, or that's what we shied away from, because some of the students who are going to take advantage of this might not have the 3.0. They might have a 2.3 GPA for a variety of reasons. So we did add some specifics in saying that those students must have passed all their previous classes in the previous quarter before applying to the internship. If a student does receive a failing mark, they would be eligible to apply for a waiver, and each student would be eligible only for one waiver throughout their time at the junior senior high school. That's where the similarity with some of the policies in the athletics comes in. We have that same policy with athletics. If you fail a class once, you can apply for a waiver. Be consistent and meet the approved attendance policies for the district. Less than 3 disciplinary infractions. And I think it's also important, of course we have a little note at the bottom, but I think it's, in terms of disciplinary infractions, we also have to consider what they are, right? If they only have one and it's something major, we're not going to send them out into the workforce either. But that would be, if it might have been disrupting a class, tardy to class, something like that happened once each, then we think over the course of the year that they should still have an opportunity. And then be currently satisfying their graduation requirements. We don't want to set students up for failure, set students up and say, well, if you do this, we'll support it, but you're not going to be able to graduate, right? That's counterproductive for us. So make sure that they're in alignment and that they have the elective space in their schedules to participate in something like this, similar to what they would do currently with the community service learning. And then also, we want to make sure students who don't meet this criteria, we can work with them. So we can provide support and resources, come up with a plan. If this is something that they really want to do, if they really want to get into a technology program that, or industry that we have a connection with, but they don't meet this criteria, coming up with a plan so that they have a goal that they can work towards.
Is there a limit to the number of students each mentor can have?
Each mentor in terms of from the internship site, currently we don't have a limit set on that, but it'd have to be a conversation based on the organization's capacity and our specific student interest. And I've also recently talked to Allie and asked her to connect with, so there's, in Chicopee, there's a director of workforce development for their schools. So there's an internship program, work-based learning program through Chicopee Comp and Chicopee High School that my wife, through her business, has experience with. So I've also asked Ms. Jordan to reach out to them to continue to kind of get information and see how we might be able to refine this, see what works for them, what hasn't worked. And my wife kind of stumbled upon it. Somebody was looking for a position and they made a connection, and now she's had 2 or 3 interns go through her business and has had really positive experiences. And it involves her sending like a weekly update to the program, making sure that they're meeting certain criteria based on a rubric. And so there's still opportunity for us for growth. But because the opportunity is so extensive in what we could do, we wanted to get, we're working to build a foundation with this.
Makes sense. Is there an expected action today?
Yes, because this would be a change to the student handbook. It would be included in the handbook, so looking for a vote to approve the updated.
This is our second reading of it, right? With updates.
Second read, yes, with the addition of the criteria.
Do you guys have any questions?
Just one, getting back to having some discretion around the 3 disciplinary infractions.
Mm-hmm.
Would it make sense to have a statement in there that, that clearly states that it's up to the principal's discretion?
Absolutely.
Because if you're saying, one serious infraction could change it, I think we need to be clear in the policy.
Yeah,
Okay.
somebody might try to hold that against you
Yep.
at some point, right?
Yeah. And I think we could even change it to say any student applying with disciplinary infractions must be approved by the principal. So we could take out the number altogether and say it won't be more than X, but any student with a disciplinary referral would need to have written approval.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you think is reasonable for you and Ally,
Mm-hmm.
To...
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable because I don't expect all of us that we're going to get 75 applications right off the bat. So I think part of it will be refining our process, and we have access to student records fairly quickly, and we're small enough that we know everything that's going on in terms of what is on the books, and so I think
it just gives you guys some flexibility.
yes, yep, I think you're right.
In the language.
And some oversight,
Yeah.
some authority.
Yep.
Authority and flexibility on how you want to
Yes,
implement that
could
authority.
be our carrot. Or something.
Yeah.
Yes. Happy to make that change.
But I'm okay voting on that amended policy.
Is that your motion?
I will make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Should we breathe first?
Well, believe it or not, you already are breathing.
Believe that.
When do you think this will start?
There's potential to have it up and running for the second semester.
That would be fantastic. I would love to see that.
Cool. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. So.
Can I ask?
do you have
Of course.
a question?
By upperclassmen, you mean like juniors and seniors only, right?
Yeah,
Or
we
is
have
this-
we said current junior or senior.
Okay.
We didn't just say
It did state that.
upperclassmen. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're eligible to do this for 2 years, right? So if they do it as a junior, as long as they're meeting their academic.
As long as they're still within their graduation requirements and meeting all what the core requirements are, yes. It would be like an elective that they could continue to take. Yeah. Similar, again, to community service learning.
Great. If there are no other questions, with the motion, all in favor to approve the amended work-based learning contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Great, thank you.
That's great.
We'll make that change and share it with Cheryl so she can share it out with everybody in the next day or two.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate
Yep,
it.
this is good.
We're gonna have to talk about badminton at some point, Dean.
Oh, boy.
I've been laughing about that all weekend. I'm gonna make a name for myself. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too,
Thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Cheryl, you didn't
Um,
need for anything else.
No, I think we're good. I've just checked.
Thank you.
Do you want to go back to e-learning and
Sure.
take care of that? Okay.
So there is a memo in your folder titled eLearning for Inclement Weather Days. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my colleague Terry Thomas from the Mahar Regional School District for piloting this idea in her district last year. Together we've had several conversations, and I brought the idea forward to our district leadership team for consideration. And so we are excited to explore this e-learning opportunity with our students. With the assistance of David, we have already begun working in Google Classroom environment in many classrooms. With the opening of the new elementary school, our students in grades 3 through 6 will have assigned devices that will allow them online learning access in every classroom. And working with teachers to create and deliver learning experiences for inclement weather days seems like a natural progression for a digital learning environment. So the idea here is that we would have staff be creating online content and learning for students to participate in during inclement weather days. And we would develop those lessons and criteria and expectations, and work over the next month or so to create those and have students actually participating in digital learning experiences or at-home learning experiences during these inclement weather days. Why? A couple of reasons. One is I did put the weather-related cancellation delays and early dismissals in this memo for your review. The number is relatively consistent, but the intensity of them, we have multiple days in a row of students being absent, big storms, longer storms. It doesn't look like that's going to change. And in the world, we have many more students driving. And so when I am making the consideration for a cancellation or a delay, I do take that in consideration, especially the roads in Granby and our new drivers. I'm cautious and lean toward a cancellation. And so what we are proposing is a pilot for this school year. So that we would be able to develop the lessons, implement the lessons, get student feedback and staff feedback, and report back to you how this goes.
When you say pilot, is it the scope in terms of number of students, or is it the scope in terms
would-
of
yep.
classes?
So it would be district-wide. So we would be working with all of our teachers at grade levels to develop learning opportunities at home. So our youngest students in K through 2 would be doing hands-on activities. They would not be necessarily online and conversing through the Google Classroom platform with their teachers, but those would be lessons that would be sent home with the students so that they could work at home and then bring those activities and lessons back to participate in class the next day or a couple of days depending on the cancellation. And the online learning component really is the grades 3 through 12. One of the things that I heard one of our students say who's been at college and came back for the event the day before Thanksgiving, the alumni conversation. One of the things that we heard was that the student was surprised at how much online learning is done at the college level. Also how much online learning is done at the career level now. How much of our learning has to be done via online digital content. Not only is the Google Classroom and the platform for conversation amongst students and staff or teachers collaborating, the textbooks are online, the tools to highlight, all of that we need to help our students become extremely comfortable with in order for them to be successful once they graduate and are in their post-secondary world.
Sounds good to me.
I'm skeptical.
It's, yes, and you're not the
I mean,
only
is
one.
nothing sacred anymore? These kids can't even have a snow day.
On the other hand, if we do, this would count as like a school day, right? So that, then we don't have to make those up at the end of the year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So that
That's
would be-
what
that would be my
I'm
biggest
skeptical about.
Question is, can we get the content in there to qualify it as a normal school day
Yeah.
across the board,
Yep.
right?
That's what I'm a little concerned about,
And-
because we can say that it's
Yeah.
a full school day,
Right.
but is it really?
Yep. And I think that is why I suggest a pilot. So that we can get feedback from students, we can get feedback from families, we can get feedback from staff to talk about exactly that. Is it rigorous enough? When we talked at the leadership level, we are not making an assumption that these activities are going to necessarily go in alignment with the instruction. So, for example, on Monday we had a lesson in English Language Arts about Shakespeare. On Tuesday we have a snow day. The e-learning is not necessarily going to be attached to the Shakespeare, but maybe something separate. So it may be that students, teachers have prepared 5 to 7 learning activities that are extensions. Maybe they're going to focus on writing, or maybe it's completely alternate, so that it's additional learning that we're doing. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding or misconception that we think we're going to stay in the curriculum necessarily, but these would be extension activities for students.
I've just been a
Extension
lot
learning.
of, I've been a part of a lot of this, online learning
Yep.
through, school and work. And they can do an awful lot of stuff, but I've seen it in a very focused place, and
Right.
I just have, I guess, a concern as to how this would work with so many different types of classes, needing to happen almost simultaneously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say extension, extension of learning, it's not learning. It's really not, because there's no teacher involved.
Well, no, there is a teacher involved. So that's the work of, I think, this year, is to define exactly that. So there does have to be contact hours through the Google Classroom or through which all of the students in 7-12 have, so that there is that connection and that
But how do you do
direct
that
conversation.
at a younger level?
So that's the discussion. So I think what we're creating in terms of activities and learning that's going on at home, how does that come back to school and work into the next day?
Yeah, I don't know. I have so many questions because I'm thinking about, parents that are scrambling around because they still have to go to work. So they're trying to just find daycare for their younger kids, and it may not be conducive to them being on a computer or even doing worksheets. I mean, there's just so many moving parts that my skepticism is, again, is this more busy work and then we're going to call it a full day? And how much are we really losing? Because, in a 6-hour school day, that's a lot of lost learning. And as much as I agree that, nobody wants to go into a later school year, I just don't want to do it at the expense of learning.
So we are having a lot of conversations, we've been having a lot of conversations around technology and how that's going to help change, shape the way we deliver education. So I'm not even sure that at all instances an educator has to be present. There are many ways you can go online, whether it's Khan Academy or something else. You can do a lot of things and learn without having your own instructor. But I hear your concern there as far as whether or not it's going to align well. And there, what I'm thinking is, that's the beauty of pilots. I mean, that's why we're piloting it, to see where there are gaps, where there are some shortcomings potentially, where it works, where it doesn't work. It doesn't mean that we're committing to it. So if we realize that this is really not doing what it's supposed to do, or it's creating the shortfalls that you're talking about, we have the opportunity to say no to this.
And in your scenario, those folks that are learning, those are adults.
Not for Khan Academy. I mean, they have every. In fact, I think he created it for his 8-year-old nephew or something like that. That's the impetus of the whole thing. So, and there are many other modules. I mean, we're really experimenting, and we're getting happy that next door we're going to have a lot of technology that will boost education. So this may be one way for us to really see how it works. Whether we can add another dimension to it. And again, if it doesn't work, it's a pilot. That's a good thing about pilots, and that we can say no, it doesn't work. It doesn't do what it is. It hurts education, then we can take it back. At least that's how I look at it.
Understood. Yep.
So do you need a vote on this to go ahead
Yes.
with the pilot?
Yep.
So is there a motion to approve the pilot for e-learning for inclement weather days?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Can you second?
Yeah, I can.
You can't second? All right, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any other concerns? You have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
On this one.
That's fine. I expect it.
okay. So by extension, so that's kind of like a teacher by teacher basis, like what they would decide to put on the thing,
Right.
like whatever portal it is. So it'd be like teacher by teacher basis, like if they're grading that and collect it. Okay. I was wondering, because I was thinking well, how do you enforce the kids doing that? But I'm like, the kids who aren't doing that probably aren't doing their regular homework, so, but because then, I get
They're going to get a credit for it, though, for showing up.
Right, yeah. So I was just wondering how that,
Then again, there may be some unanticipated benefits to it that we may learn through this pilot. One, what you're saying and what you're both saying may be true, that there is no consistency, but we may find out that the technology-based education works in different ways. We may be able to really take that and do something with it. Again, it's not a commitment. Is there is there a penalty associated with this?
No.
So we're testing it, we're piloting it to see if it works, but it's not, students will not be held
No.
to it. Okay.
It's for
Well-
this year.
For this, what do you mean students will not be held to it?
Well, will there be, you know, there are many different scenarios. We are making the strong assumption that everybody has access to technology, everybody
Right.
even has internet at
Mhm.
home. We're assuming that the snow situation will be such that they will be even available to
Mhm.
do that.
Right.
You know, even the example that Deanne shared.
Mhm.
So in those cases, even though there may be requirements, students may not be able to do it. We're just trying it. So is this
Mhm.
something that we're trying to see whether it works with all the good intentions that we have, and we expect the students to have the best intentions as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I just, the one point, well, one of the points that I thought was actually good was, that you brought up, was the parents trying to get the kids to daycare and just making sure that there's a place for that too in this,
Mhm.
you know, pilot, right?
Right.
Because not everybody can just stay home for the day and say, hey,
Mhm,
go ahead and use the
mhm, yep.
computer.
Yep.
And I'm gonna throw something else in there. This is Granby. When we have a storm, lots of times the power's out.
Right.
So
Mhm.
is
Yeah, that's
the
another thing.
internet.
Yep. And so there are, you know, when we talk this through with, at the admin level and with the teachers, I think we need to take that into consideration, and what are the alternates going to be, and if the power is out, what are our, you know, is it going to be a day that we can count? In other words, there's just, there are, I think this is going to be a learning year for us, in terms of what we may encounter that's specific to Granby.
And the internet down too,
Right.
because that's happened at our house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, there are many ways of playing with the data.
Yeah.
I mean, we may find out that, you know, student who gets to read that extra chapter from, you know, from the novel, they don't benefit from it because everybody else rested and slept through the day, and then, you know, they came back all refreshed, and this person tried to do. We may find out different things, or it may be the opposite, that they actually show that they're ahead just because they had the opportunity to read something calmly at home without having the repercussion of, you know, being in a classroom and answering questions, going through quizzes, whatever it might be. So, you know, it's a pilot. So long as there are, you know, the pilot is really a pilot, and we don't really create unequal
that it-
punishment.
Right.
And, you know, we want to make sure that it's objective and that it doesn't get skewed, because who wouldn't want to take 6 days off the end of the school year?
Right.
You know, I mean, what is the criteria that we're trying to satisfy? You know, what is the criteria here for completion of a school day? You know, it just seems like there's an awful lot of questions.
Yeah.
I do think we need to at least give it a look and see what happens.
So with that, all in favor to approve the pilot for the e-learning for inclement weather days, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You said aye?
Barely.
All right.
Barely
Just to
said
make
aye.
sure. Thank you.
Can you tell I'm not in favor?
No, you're skeptical, that's okay.
Yes,
So the
I
next
am.
two I will cover very quickly, D and E. The first one is proposed changes to our future school committee agenda. Did you want to speak to that, or?
I
did you-
put in a memo regarding defining consent agenda. So it just defines what a consent agenda is. It gives some examples of items that are on consent agendas, and the idea that at any point, if there's a member that wants to discuss something on the consent agenda, it can be moved to the regular part of the agenda. That's all.
So that's one of the possibilities, and if there's a way for us to really focus our agenda more on policy on strategy, on educational topics that we'd like to discuss. Today's meeting so far, even though we only went through 3 things, there were novel ideas, different things, from mindfulness to work-based learning to, using e-learning. If we get to really wrap our heads around that type of opportunities during our meetings and have these conversations, bring some examples, because otherwise we have to meet outside these meetings for workshops and stuff. That creates a lot of load for everyone on the committee. So if we can find a way to adjust the agenda, but the first thing that we thought about was a consent agenda, which includes several topics, several items. Let's just read through that for our next meeting and see if we would like to go in that direction. Probably we would start at this next year in a way, in January, if we decide to go that way.
So that is one of the opportunities of a consent agenda, is to manage the business aspect of the meeting. Things that you would have read before, and if there weren't questions about, would simply be voted in its entirety. So the minutes, policy approvals, the business aspect of the meeting, so that we could stay more focused on the learning and the strategic parts of the school committee's work.
So the item, is there any question on that? Okay. The item after that is something that I wanted to throw out there. It's this is about problem solving. It's root cause problem solving. Basically, we talk about a lot of issues that come up, and we have good conversations around them, but we don't really dig deep enough for root causes in many cases, and then we don't document what's going on. I'm passionate about root cause problem solving, so I wanted to throw it out there. If there's an interest in doing a quick training, I would be willing to do that.
Collaborative problem solving or
Yeah.
root? Well,
It's root cause problem solving, but it's collaborative in the sense that
Well, CPS is something else. Collaborative problem solving is collaborative problem solving, but you're using root.
it's root cause problem solving, but root cause problem solving is only successful when it's done in a collaborative way, not just I go and say, I believe these are the root causes and I call it a day. That's why I called it collaborative. So it will
no.
require participation from,
It's just, it's collaborative problem solving is a model.
yeah.
It's
Well, I know all
it's-
models, so.
yeah.
probably.
Well, I
Let's make it his
that's
own.
why because I'm familiar with collaborative problem solving, but so I'm
Maybe
just
there are
confused.
similarities, yeah. So if again, this will have to be early next year. If there is an interest to do a quick workshop, I can walk everybody through that. It may be something that we find useful, because one thing about problem solving is, if there are issues and the issues keep on coming back, that means we did not address the root causes. You're probably doing similar things at work too. And there are quite a few things that seem to come back. And as I was thinking about those, I was wondering if we can give this a shot and see if we can dig a little deeper on some of those things to the extent that we as a school committee are able to, or maybe provide some guidance, some direction for others who may pick that up and continue. So that was a suggestion, just like the previous one. If there's an interest, please let me know, and I will make time anytime starting in January, and we can have a quick workshop. Superintendent's evaluation.
So in your folder, labeled Cheryl Stanton 2016-17 end of cycle summative, is a document that lists goals relative to participation in the superintendent induction program, and then for each of the standards, a discussion of progress in each of the standards. And above that are 4 folders that I'm putting evidence in. I recognize that Emery won't be with us for a little while, so
For the next meeting.
for the next meeting, so we can perhaps take a look at that data and then have a discussion about evaluation outcome when you return.
So this is all filled out with your goals.
For last year.
For last year.
Right.
The nice thing, I guess, is that you were with us, but most of us had at least one experience with this, and a few of us had at least 3 years of experience with it. I think it started 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was, and we immediately adopted it. So we don't have the other two members, but I don't know that they're gonna be surprised by seeing this because they've done it before. Can we take this, do our personal evaluation? So the way it works, Mike, we take this tells us what our superintendent's goals are. Based on that, we write our own evaluation, and there is you added the guidelines in this folder. We then write our own evaluation in a few words, and there are some boxes available for that, and we select one of the 5 categories for each 5, right? For each one of those goals, and then it gets combined, usually by the chair of the board, and then we share those feedback with the superintendent at one meeting, and it's a public session, so everybody hears what the feedback is. There are some strengths that we highlight and celebrate, and there are some opportunities that we talk about, and then we share the overall evaluation, or overall level of evaluation, and that's it. So since we only have 3 members today, do you think the 18th is our meeting day, right? The 18th of December would be, well, actually, it's probably not good for me, because I'm not going to have time to go over it.
You're not going to do it on vacation?
Right.
So our next would
I can't.
be January 8th.
Is that good? Would you be okay with that? Okay, so is January 8th good for our evaluation?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be able to print it off and actually read it at that point.
Okay.
I can't really see it here.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So if we can do that, that should give us some time. If you have any questions, please, let me know. Anything doesn't make sense on the guidelines, then I will send an email to you, or maybe I can send it to the committee to say, please get it to me by this date. And then I would put all the feedback together in one form, and then we would discuss it on January 8th. All good? Okay. Anything else that you wanted to add?
Only that we will be doing this again very quickly once the strategic plan is, the goals are set and in place, and because the goals for me will change as a result of the strategic plan. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any questions? Any one of these? Okay, moving on to old business. Do we have any updates on the strategic plan and review? We don't have a meeting
Nope.
tomorrow, do we?
No.
Okay.
Nope. We will have a meeting, I know you're not going to be here, Emery, but we had agreed to December 6th,
Okay.
so I thought we could move forward. We won't obviously finish, but we'll begin the discussion
Yeah.
about strategies, strategic objectives, and that will probably be a couple of meetings anyway, so.
Cool. Sounds good. Any questions on the strategic plan? Okay, MCAS results.
So it's 8:30.
Yep. You want to table that?
It's up to us. It's the presentation is 2 parts. It's about changes to MCAS and next generation MCAS, and then results. It's probably about 15 minutes.
All of it? Okay.
Or we can go right to results if you want.
Let's just start. What do you guys think?
Well, I read through the changes. Seemed pretty self-explanatory as I read through it. I did have questions on the results because I didn't really know how to put it into context, and I think that's what we were talking about.
But he was remarking the colorful bar charts, so.
Yes, I thought it was very colorful.
Yes. My other concern too is Marie and Jen aren't here, so
Right,
I
that's,
don't know
that's
if we
the,
wanna.
that's the main
Seems
reason
like
why
a
I asked
pretty
whether-
big thing to table for now. Without two members here, I think we should, in other words.
Wanna do that?
Mhm.
Okay. Wanna table it? Okay. So. And we're tabling it to what day?
So, the 18th.
Okay.
Maybe by then some of the colors will start to make sense to me.
Maybe, maybe. If you breathe enough, it all makes sense.
That was one of the issues that Hannah, our chairperson, said that she had. I think she was telling the board, like, we're, doing this for the parents, or however, teachers and stuff, how they're supposed to understand it, but it's confusing to them. So how are we expecting our kids to understand how to read the results so they can better prepare themselves if we're not?
This is MCAS 2.0 conversation that you guys had? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Thank you, Annabelle.
Night.
Budget 17?
We come to the fun part of the meeting.
Yes.
So
favorite
17, not much update there, other than you are reminding me that since we last met, we filled out the end of the year report, which gets reported to the state. So there is a sign-off page, which I need to get your and Cheryl's signature on, which I printed off while we were here. So before you leave, if you wouldn't mind signing that off, basically says, you certify that what's been reported is correct. So I'll be happy to send you a copy of the end of the year report if you want to take a look at it.
I have a quick question. We still, it's a good thing that it's still on our agenda, but are we not done? I thought in September there was this reconciliation meeting on budget 17, and that was going to be it. Is there more?
Nope. We're done.
We're done. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
FY18, I have a memo in front of you and a couple documents in the Google Drive for the local budget update. In your folder is the expenditure report for the local appropriation. You voted last time the appropriated amount as a line item, and we entered that in as a budget. So from the original appropriation of 8.5 million, we have, and this is through November, because even though this is the October meeting, we're almost at the end of November, and the accounting software doesn't allow me to do a monthly result, which would give you October, and have the budget column, which is kind of important because then you can see compared to what. So I just ran it as of today. So this is really as November results. So as of November, we have $2.7 million expended, $5.8 million remaining. We've expended 32% of the budget as we're 40% through the year. So the budget is on track in terms of our planned expenditures.
Do you know where we were last year this time as far as the
Yes.
percentage?
That's my question too, because that seems awfully high for this point in the year.
Really? See, I thought it was low. Because don't forget too, we also have a lot of things encumbered that aren't necessarily rolling expenses. Our electricity is encumbered, our heat is encumbered, our tuitions are encumbered. So there's a lot of things that are already accounted for.
That was the next question,
In the
is some of that
available
is, for the future that's already spent
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
okay.
I can look that up for you and see where we were at last year.
Okay.
While I do that afterwards, and then I can just yell it out. So, the second item is that Cheryl and I met with Chris Martin, the town manager, today to discuss the 3 unanticipated and unbudgeted expenses, to talk about the process of getting them placed on a appropriation for a town meeting vote. And the 3 items total $179,408.48. With those articles, if they're approved.
What's the amount again?
$179,408.48, and it is on the memo that I gave you as well. With those items as approved, the budget is on budget. Without those items, the budget is in the red. So just so that everybody understands that, because this process was, as we had unanticipated items come up, that this was the process we're going through. So a memo with the 3 articles will be forwarded to the town manager, so that he can bring it to Board of Selectmen, so that they can consider putting it on a special town meeting, likely in January. I think is what he was anticipating.
And So just so we're all clear, none of these unanticipated expenses can come from any other funds in the town?
Transfer request is what you're referring to?
Yes.
So we put forward the transfer request through Mr. Martin to the Finance Board. We did not hear a formal response yet from Finance. We've heard through Chris that they were not approved, but that has not come written in any written form. So that's why we're moving forward with Chris on moving through Select Board.
And is there a reason why it hasn't been
I do not know.
answered, the transfer funds request?
Well, we know only through the indirect communication that there were some rules that we did not know about, that line items need to be between $8,000 to $12,000, which wasn't discussed before. That the total amount requested exceeded the total amount that could be available. But we had multiple items too, so 2 out of 3 could have been under that. So we did not hear the official reasoning around that. The other item that I heard is that there is not enough money in the General Reserve Fund to accommodate the request that we made to begin with. But to that, and this is something that we brought up during the joint meeting, I believe, last year as well, that for the school building, $2 million were taken out of the reserve funds, and they were, for whatever reason, split into 2 $1 million blocks. And one of those 1 million blocks came out of the General Reserve Fund, which wasn't really dedicated for construction capital purposes to begin with. So that reduced the amount in the General Reserve Fund to a level where now we are having the conversation that there isn't enough money to accommodate.
And the
So we
general
have to have
reserve fund is the stabilization fund?
Yeah, it is one of the 3 funds that we have for
Okay.
for stabilization purposes. So there were some reasons shared, but for whatever reason we did not receive a formal response, and we requested twice via email, one personally. We did not get it, and I think the suggestion was at this point to go to the Select Board and initiate the process for a special town meeting. I think it behooves us to really repeat this as often as we can, that the expenses, the unanticipated expenses that we're talking about are truly unanticipated. And these are mandated expenses. These are special education. We cannot say, no, we're not going to spend it. If somebody comes to town and says, I'm going to go to a vocational school, we cannot say no to it. If that vocational school is not Pathfinder because they don't offer the programs that the student is interested in. It's not us, it's one of those quirks of our educational policies or and laws that require us to spend the money, but sometimes that message potentially is getting misunderstood or not well understood. So that's a message that we have to really make clear to everyone, that this is not something that we are spending in a discretionary way. This is mandated expense that we have to counter. So it's by Friday, I think you said, we have to submit a request to Chris so that he can bring it to
Yes.
the Select Board meeting on
Yes.
Monday
Mhm.
to ask for a date
Yes.
or their approval for a special town
Mhm.
meeting? Okay. Do I need to do anything on that, or is it all your?
I believe it is just me.
Okay, that's good. If you need me, I can be available on Friday.
Okay.
Anything else on either one of these?
Yep, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna move on to grants if there was nothing else about
Yes,
the
please.
articles.
Yep.
So just kind of giving you a grants update. We have the updated chart as to what grants have been approved and where we stand. So we have a net reduction in grants from FY17 to FY18 of $72,573. So that's less revenue for the district. This is offset somewhat by an increase in circuit breaker allocation of $31,113, higher than last year. So the net loss in revenue is $41,460, and this includes the elimination of the sped improvement grant 274, sorry. So we're looking at this year, FY18, with what we have for approved grants and revolving funds right now, $41,000 less in revenue. School choice gets trued up in December by DESE, so about mid to late December, we should know where we stand with school choice. The encouraging thing is we think we have the number of students coming in that DESE will accredit us for that equals the number that we lost, and we were conservative in estimating our revenue for school choice. So that shouldn't end up being a blow, the result that we get when it comes in from DESE.
So does that mean it's neutral?
Neutral, or it may be a little more positive than what we anticipated, because we did anticipate losing 15 students without gaining any students because of the way it had been trending last year when we were working on the budget.
So as of right now, we are 179,000 and change plus the 41,460.
No, 41,460 is part of that. I'm just saying that's a drop in revenues.
Okay.
And that's all contributes to the all funds budget. Putting all that together, the 179 is where we stand.
Gotcha.
In terms of being in deficit. And actually, it's a little less than that. 179 is the articles, but things change every day. But we're close to that number in terms of the way the deficit would look without those articles.
So typically, the grant money we spend when we provide the we spend it when we provide the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, we have a deficit because part of these are going to salary accounts. Is that why? Because if we're not providing the service, then if the grant is short, then we are not able to provide that service, right? Is that how it works, or we have to provide the service, but for whatever reason the grants were slashed, or the third possibility is that part of these funds were going to salaries, and that's why we were expecting to have fully funded on the grant side, and if we're not, that's going to be a gap.
Right.
Is
For the
is
most
that the third
part,
one?
yes. For the third one, for the most part, grants fund salaries. So when there's less grant funds to fund a portion of that salary, that portion needs to be made up in the local budget.
Okay. The circuit breaker looks in better shape. Is there a reason for that?
More sped expense we had last year, so we have a bigger reimbursement this year in circuit breaker.
Okay.
And then the fourth item is the results of food service operations that are in the packet. Andrew didn't have a chance yet to produce that attractive sheet that he does, so we have the P&L that's difficult to get through, but the net loss for October in terms of operations is $162. The year-to-date loss through October from the start of school is $20,363. Compared to last year, it was $18,313. But one of the things that he wanted to point out is that we did have a couple coolers that broke down, so we had some product lost to the tune of almost $1,400. So if you'd added that in, it would be more like $19,000 compared to $19,600 compared to $20,003. So it's about $900 higher this year than it was last year, year to date, in terms of the deficit. And of course, we're operating, as we all know, with less enrollment, and less enrollment hurts revenue.
Yes, but less enrollment is known to us. I'm assuming it's known to them as well. And this is where we are kind of getting lost in that back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
If we know and we'll plan for a number, I'm assuming they are planning for that number too. Right?
Well, don't forget their number with their addendum was an additional loss this year, not a break even, but a $10,000. Actually, it was higher than that loss.
Yeah, it was $15,000.
Yeah. So to be $800 different from where they stood last year is not, to me, it's not really very significant at this point. I mean, obviously, this is why we're watching it every month.
what is the breakdown of 2 freezers? Do you know?
I can get more detail, but apparently there was a reach-in freezer that during the summer failed, and there was milk that was lost, and there was also a freezer in the junior senior high that went down, where there was also some product that was lost.
Okay. And we don't have any generator backup for these freezers that would. I mean, certain things have to. Right, if you go to a clinic, the vaccination will be in a place that will hopefully be, always refrigerated. So the generator first kicks in to keep those cool. Do we not
I don't think
have
it
a
was
system?
Power failure, really. We would have to find out, but often it's
And that's why I was asking if these
failure
are
of
two
the
different-
freezer of the
so-
unit.
Yeah.
And if, custodians aren't checking or
Okay.
happens on a Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing, just to answer your question, Mike, last year at this time, the budget was 30% expended.
So we are a little over.
Yeah,
So-
2% more than last year.
Yep.
I do have something for FY18.
Okay.
Under the capital, Chris Martin sent out the capital request process. It's due at the beginning of December. So in your folder is the capital plan for 2017 to 2022. There are several pieces of that are no longer in play, so to speak, because the new school project has
Yep.
taken care of that. So the main focus on capital really is the Granby Junior Senior High School. Very thankful last year for the doors, both interior and exterior, relative to safety on the exterior and fire safety on the inside. And so this year, if you look at the plan, there is requests relative to the roof and to the bathrooms that I would recommend we move forward. We do continue to have the issue with the roof on this side in the science classrooms that leak and create issues for us in the classrooms. And the bathrooms would be completing the project that was started in 2015, and this would be the remainder of that project.
So, did we submit a statement of interest for the roof? Wasn't
We did
there
last
some
year.
program?
Yep, we did not receive approval on that. And in speaking with Tim Alex, who's the project manager for the new building, he gave me some insight into why that could have been, and is willing to work with us to put a second accelerated repair request forward, which may meet the criteria, particularly for the boilers and the windows.
And when does that have to be submitted by?
I just called him today, so we'll be working with him.
So that will make a big difference
Yep.
in this capital plan
Right.
request.
Well, and I do believe we probably need to regroup and formally edit this document this year and
Yes.
recognize that, so many of these things are taken care of with the building project. So
Yeah.
what really is the focus of the capital moving forward?
Well, this is from 2016.
Yep.
The first year and the second year, I believe, both, it wasn't even considered. It was just sent back to us.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'm glad that it's back in
Mhm.
play, but absolutely, there are some things that are not relevant any longer, so we should be able to.
And I think
Update.
some of it is going to require some funding in terms of some feasibility or some engineering site work to give us good feedback about how to move forward. So
Okay. Good.
Does that also include windows? The accelerated?
yes, yep, roof, windows, boilers for the most part.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which, especially the boiler, the roof is known that it's going to be a huge thing, but boiler is $530,000
Right.
Yeah.
here. So
And there is some work on the town side with Mr. Joyce regarding
Yes.
some of the green
Energy
energy.
audit,
And so we had a brief conversation. I passed him actually at town hall today. A brief conversation about that. And so I think, gathering people around the table to talk about, what the needs are specifically here. And how to manage an accelerated repair or a renovation or continuing on with capital. I think that's a decision that collectively, collaboratively, we can problem solve around and
Yeah.
put together a plan.
yeah, and as we always say, we don't want to miss the opportunities to recognize good work. I think that energy audit, the energy committee did a great job getting the grant for us to be able to do an energy audit here at the schools.
So we have completed our level 1 here, and we're moving on to level 2. So they did just
Right.
receive notice that they have funding for level 2, so they're
Yep.
coming through and doing that. So that can work into the whole decision regarding MSBA, renovation, or capital, the direction that we would go.
Great, awesome. So we have any questions on the budgets or any of these items? Okay. So we only have our standing reports left. Would you like to kick us off with
Sure.
your report? Okay.
Superintendent update. Oh. I'm running into Deanne's problem. I can't find
Gee,
it.
it's not just me.
I know, no, where is it? Oh,
Was
there
that,
it
was
is.
that you
Okay.
actually doing stuff that was popping up on the screen saying,
Who was there?
No, it wasn't there, and then it appeared.
oh, no, I was talking about
swear.
when I had the document open, I could see your name popping up all over the place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could too.
I'm like, well, that's kind of neat.
I will be the first to admit I'm not a computer person.
So I had the opportunity to present an update on the new elementary school building to the Lions Club just before Thanksgiving. As you know, and the Lions were very happy to hear we are on time and on budget with our building project. Thank you to the Lions for having me, and we'll be back hopefully to have a community walkthrough once the building is open for our students. So they were excited, and I'm sure the community will be excited as well.
Before you move on that one, I heard at least from one member who was also very happy that you were there, and had a lot of great things to say about you being there and speaking with them. So thank you for doing that. It's great. I mean, we only have so many institutions, clubs,
Yes.
groups in our town. So this is exactly what we.
So
need
one of
to
the
do.
things I would like to do is create the opportunity to talk at the senior center. I think it's a missed opportunity. So if there's a way for us to figure out how that could happen, even on a regular basis, I would love some ideas around reaching out to that community in meaningful ways for them. Questions
Yeah.
that they have
Yep.
about the schools and partnerships that we can have with students and them as well. We are slated for moving East Meadow students into the new building over February break, so it certainly is going to be busy for sure, but what an exciting time for students, families, staff, and the Granby community. I wanted to say thank you to the Granby Athletic Association for their hosting of the Fall Athletic Banquet. It was a wonderful evening celebrating our student athletes. And then finally, our cross-country team and girls soccer team competed in postseason tournament games and meets. And thank you to all who came out to support our teams. I was at Westboro, I believe, for the girls.
Westfield?
No, Westboro.
Oh, they were in
Was it
Westboro?
one in
Yeah.
Westboro? Way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made
it
it
was
to the first.
cold. It was
Yeah.
cold.
Oh, I thought they were in Westfield.
No.
All right.
Well, they were at Westfield State for the Western Mass Division Finals, which they won.
Oh, yeah,
and then
that's
they went to
true.
the regional.
Yes,
The
yes,
next step was
yes.
in Westboro, and they played a fabulous game. Very close. I believe it was only 2-1.
2-1, yeah.
And I am just always amazed at the teamwork, the camaraderie, and the grit our students demonstrate on the field. How they bring teamwork to the field. I don't think you get that in a lot of school districts where we have 8th grade students on the field with our seniors in a championship level game, and you wouldn't be able to tell who was who because they are so confident and they have time to play. These are not students that are sitting a JV bench. They are playing varsity. And they're growing leaps and bounds, not only with their skill set in athletics, but as part of a team and part of a connection to the community of the Granby Junior Senior High School. So thank you to our upperclassmen who create that environment for our students, not just girls soccer, it's in every one of our
coaches.
Our coaches, to the Granby Athletic Association who make that happen. All the way down to our littlest kiddos that in kindergarten are playing soccer and baseball, and it's a wonderful community for them to grow up in and realize that their efforts at young ages can bear fruit of playing at a varsity level at the high school.
Yep. Congratulations to both the girls soccer and our cross-country team. Especially girl cross-country team has been fantastic since I've known them, and just they always do a great job with their meets. But a lot of people may not realize that the girls soccer team, after renewal after renewal, they still come back and show the tenacity, and they play well, and I think 7 out of 8. Last 8, they made it to the Western Mass final, something like that. I mean, something that is really impressive. And they do it with changing teams. Because we always had some great players, we always had some great runners, and then they leave, obviously, and then new ones come in. They fill their places. So congratulations to all of them. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the collaborative?
Yeah, we met a couple weeks ago. They went over the annual report for last year. A couple of highlights from that was they reorganized within the collaborative. They've created a cabinet level of 9 folks that I guess had certain divisions or departments that all kind of work with the director. I think the thought process there is to kind of flatten it down a little bit and allow that many things to happen independently. They replaced 3 of their platforms that they use. It looks like the accounting, the customer service platform application, and the HR applications that they've been using, which is a major feat if you think about it. If you're replacing all these applications that are your business, it's a big thing. They've been focusing on ways to increase the direct services. They've been focusing on new business or strategic plans. And the areas of focus, especially with the CCAT and their OTC, they're also looking and focusing their energy in areas of expected growth, specifically around professional development and social and emotional learning, and social justice. They went over a lot of numbers of the students, the parents, the families that they've impacted over the year, like 3,200 individuals across, for the direct services. The professional development says 5,500 educators. Then there was a part about the annual audit report. The auditors came in, said it was very clean. They had no findings, no concerns. And reports, the audit report from last year to this year. Last year there was a negative of 126,000. That would be the excess revenues over expenses. This year it was up 125,000, so it was a swing of about 225. So they were quite excited about that. And that's in the face of a lot of the decreasing grants that you were talking about, which is a big part of their budget too.
Yeah. But
We
they're
voted on-
increasing their services, right? That's how they're trying to
Yeah.
make up for it.
Yeah, and there were some questions on that I had, because they would put out, like, this is what we do, and here's our rate, member, non-member, and the comparative rates, and one of the questions, especially around professional development, since there's like so many, their rates are low in comparison to where they can go elsewhere, and I'm like, well, why can't you raise that rate up? And they're like, well, there's a law, which I think is kind of crazy, that they're not allowed to charge more than, I think, 20% over cost to any non-member. Which, I get it, it's a nonprofit, but at the same time, sometimes you need to generate some revenue in order to build up something on the other
Right,
side, right?
right.
And locking them down in that fashion, I don't think is extremely fair, but that's what the law is, right? So,
Yeah.
we then voted on free cash. It was a negative, just under 11,000. There was a conflict of interest statement they want all board members to sign. The questions arose, and we didn't sign it there, is they're going to take it back to legal, their legal department, because in order to be on that board, we already have to take a course about the conflict of interest and sign off on it through the state website, as well as the one we have to do here
Here,
for this one.
yeah.
So there was a question on the need for it. Is there really is there really a need for it, or was this just an auditor's request? Is really what was going on, because it came from the auditor. And then finally, there was a discussion on the charter schools and admissions. Apparently, by law, that they are eligible to join the collaborative, and I believe there was one that had expressed some interest. But I guess the way to gain membership kind of makes that difficult, because it has to pass so many hurdles, and then once the vote gets done by the board, then it gets passed around to each school district to sign off on. That's. But there I question, if it's allowed by law, what recourse would we have to say no, right?
Right.
Except our own personal. But that's really the whole meeting that we had. I think I
it
wrapped
was
it up in 5 minutes, and we were there for
productive
4 hours.
Really?
That's just long meetings.
Wow. All right, so no complaints about our meeting, right? Just late start, but we're almost done. So quick notes on the building committee meeting. The highlight was the naming, budget-wise, everything is on track. There were some adjustments because the bids came under the budget. That amount had to be shared with MSBA, and MSBA had to make some decisions as to how the extra funds were going to be, could be spent. And my understanding, based on the adjustment papers that were received, about a little over $1 million were allowed to be put in our contingency. This was $2.5 million surplus, so the rest of it goes back, because probably either it was their share by percentage, or it was not eligible to begin with. So
wait, what does that mean?
it means just, we have $1 million or so extra that went into our contingency. If we do not have some unforeseen expenses, we could have that amount as a surplus at the end of the budget.
And when you say we could have the amount, what
We
does
is
that mean?
Granby,
So it's the town of Granby.
the town of Granby.
So did MSBA say that we could expend those funds as we see fit?
Those funds are in with, because that's basically our share of the
Right.
project, so they give it back, and the town is, if at the end of the project, my understanding, the funds are not spent, there are a few things to do. One of them probably will be a consideration of looking at the possibility of not bonding the rest of the debt, which could reduce the tax burden, or part of it may go back to some funds. We don't really have any control over that.
Who does?
The town will have
I know.
the
I
money
know.
back at the end.
Who's the town?
The town
Is it the select
is-
board? Is it the finance?
Nope, when it
Is there
comes
an
to-
article that goes?
My understanding is when it comes to money issues, it has to, regardless of what we do, it has to go through the town meeting. So even if it's going to go back to certain coffers, it has to be voted by the town meeting to say, we have the surplus and now we're just taking it back. But the first thing, my guess is that Chris is going to explore is whether or not the surplus is going to allow us not to bond the remaining portion of the project, in which case we don't have to worry about any more tax increases. So, based on previous conversations, my understanding is that that's going to be the first objective, which is a good thing overall for the town. So it creates some possibility to explore other opportunities with funds, which has to come through tax increases, obviously. But if it goes in that direction, then we don't have to worry about an increase for the school building project plus an increase for something else. At least it gives us some room to have better conversations if it gets there. But we as a school committee don't have any control over that project to begin with. But the school building committee, once our job is done, we're done. Whatever funds are left, it's the town treasurer and the town accountant probably will just create a motion for the town meeting to do whatever they request the town to do. If the town says yes, it will be spent that way. But before that, again, probably there is a lot more flexibility for the town, and town being Chris in this case, exploring the opportunity of not bonding parts or all of the remaining debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that for that they need any town meeting approval.
What is the town debt right now for the school?
For the school, I don't know the exact amount. 14 million? 14 to 17, I don't know what it was. No, actually, I'm exaggerating.
I thought it was
No,
under 10.
It's
It was under 10, wasn't it? Wasn't that the...
Yeah, I should know that. I don't have the number in my
it was
head.
32 total,
It was 34 total, actually. It's one of
and 60% reimbursement about, correct?
Yeah,
40%.
60-something percent. I thought it was less than 10 million.
that form that we just signed. Do you have it with you?
So how can you say that we wouldn't bond? I'm confused for $1 million.
So the way it goes, you bond a large portion of it up front. So like 90% is bonded already.
Right.
And the debt that we are talking about, the tax increase that we're talking about is based on that 90% bonding. But the overall conversation around tax increase was with the assumption that we were going to bond the whole thing.
Right.
If we do not do that and we stay with the 90% level and 10% doesn't get bonded, then we don't have to worry about the remaining tax increase. It's never going to happen. I don't know how much money
Even
is
though
needed
the town voted on the original tax increase anyway,
even though
right?
yes, the town actually voted for
On the full
for a budget.
100%.
For a budget, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But it doesn't matter. The money belongs to the town. If it's not spent,
I'm not
it just comes
arguing
back
that.
way.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
That's not what I was asking. What I was asking is that the original 100% is what the town voted on anyway,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So that was it. I just wanted
Okay, yes.
clarification on that.
Yeah, the town actually voted for a budget that was created before the bids came in. The bids luckily came in under, and we started then exploring what the options were for us to use those funds. I probably shared a lot more than even I understand with all these complicated conversations with MSBA. I don't know even how they came up with the portion that came back to our contingency. Chris would probably know a lot more on that.
So in other words, if you think about it, the tax implication, the change, I mean, on 90% versus 100%, in other
Yes.
words, is going to be rather insignificant.
I don't know, because if the rate went up after the initial borrowing, that portion may be a lot more significant than it seems. The 10%.
On the final million.
On the
you're saying.
final.
Because it's
Yeah.
not just the million that we have to pay. It's $1 million plus the interest.
I can lose
Yeah.
weight or go to bigger meetings.
Yeah. So,
And that we don't know.
thank you, Cheryl.
They do the bond.
So according to
I
this.
still think it's gonna be rather low percentage.
Well, yeah, when you get it down to the household levels.
That's what I'm saying. Although the million could be used quite extensively.
So the
But it all still looks good though when you return money back to the town for a school project that
Yeah.
wasn't needed, right?
the total project budget right now is $32,390,000 and some change.
And the reimbursement rate was 63.3%.
Yes. On eligible
So what is that?
pieces.
Was the reimbursement rate was up?
Well, the
63.
reimbursement is for eligible
Right.
parts of the
That's in there.
budget, so if you want to look at this. So I will not hog the rest of the time. If you would like to take a look at that, go ahead. And quickly on the policy subcommittee, Jen is not here, but I will share with the committee that in our folders, we do have the policy comparison files. If you can start taking a look at those, that would be great, because we would like to request our second reading, and then we would like to request an approval of those updated policies. The nice thing about the visual that you're going to be seeing, if you have not had a chance already to look at those, you can see what was in place before and what changes occurred. So it's a nice comparison of the policies.
I didn't know what that was, but
Yeah, so I
I
put
did look at
C in. I put C in for you with the final version of C. So Annabelle is actually doing community service internship and doing this work with me, which is great. So we'll finish finalizing B, E, and there's one more, F maybe. We'll get that all in. So that could be our first consent agenda item, if that's a decision we decide to go forward with.
I do have one more thing I want to bring up. It's
fine.
actually related to this that I forgot to mention. It's something they brought up and I wanted to ask Cheryl about. They talked about the collaborative purchasing agreements. I'm sure you've heard of it. Just wanted to put it out there. If it's something that you thought was worthwhile pursuing or we could get a benefit from, that you'd probably be looking into it. But I just didn't know if you... I just wanted to confirm that you knew that they did that and that was there. That's all.
Yeah, they send them to us, and then they get routed around to the folks who do the purchasing in the school, so they can look at them and see if there's anything that they need, assuming we don't have a freeze on the stuff that they can order at the time. But yeah, so it's basically a listing and the price list, so that they can compare that against any other quotes that they got for materials that they need to buy for the classroom or what have you, whatever they have responsibility over.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at that.
That's all we have. A quick question, if we can explore that. Is there insurance for breakage like the freezer breakage that causes some additional cost?
I'd have to look and see. I'd have to ask the town because they have the policy.
Okay,
I can do that.
because that would be good to know. I mean, if something broke and, it's not like we caused the
Right.
issue.
Well, you
so-
would think that they would know that.
Usually it's not for breakage, like on your personal, like homeowner policy, it would be for like a power failure or something like that. Something, if something mechanical breaks down, your insurance isn't gonna cover that. Unless you got some kind of, special insurance on your appliance from the folks where you bought the appliance from, but always inquire.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know if, the insurance is similar to residential, but is there a deductible and, and all of that too?
Yeah, there would be.
And then had we, kept up on all required maintenance? That's always going to be one of those too, right?
Yeah. Anything, Deanne or Mike? Okay, so that's going to conclude our open session, and we're going to vote to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Part A3, to discuss strategy with regard to collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session. Before we go to the vote, Tim, once again, thank you so much for everything. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So let's have a roll call, please.
Deanne
Deanne?
Payne Rakowski, aye.
Emery Everett, aye.
Mike Simpson, aye.
Thank you. Good night.